Yo, welcome back again today, guys. And today I'm mad excited because I just got done watching Black Panther last night. And today I'm going to review and talk about what I think about Black Panther, the movie. And I'm also going to give a short synopsis of the backstory or the comic books that Black Panther comes from. Now, Black Panther was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and these are the original people that created such characters in Marvel like X-Men and the Hulk. Now, they originally called Black Panther the Cool Tiger, but eventually changed it because Stan Lee wanted to talk about the social issues that were going on at the time in the 60s. Now, Black Panther actually came out a couple months before the Black Panther party or organization that was based in Oakland, California, the revolutionary organization that was trying to help African Americans in justice. It actually came out a couple months before the Black Panther Party. Now, the Black Panther Party had a logo, and their logo is a Black Panther, and it is said that Stan Lee actually took his design from the Black Panther that was with the Black Panther organization. And if you don't know who the Black Panther Party is, they're a very, very important African-American group in America and history around the world. And so go definitely check them out. I made a video on them. So go check out a video called Black Panther by me in Africa Network. Now, Wakanda in the comic book is known as a third world poor country that doesn't export goods and doesn't import goods. It's locked off from the whole world. And the world thinks that it's a poor third world country. Now, Wakanda, throughout the history of the comic book from the 60s to today and throughout different movies, Marvel movies, if you're into like Iron Man and these different Marvel movies, there's actually a last Marvel movie that Black Panther was in. Actually, it was called the Captain America Civil War. And if you haven't seen that, go check that out, because then you'll know a little bit, understand a little bit more about where they locate the lands at and throughout the comic book and the movies. So the land of Wakanda is sort of between Sudan and East Africa. So we know so far, we don't know exactly the location, but throughout the comic book and the movies, the location has changed, but it's pretty much between East Africa and North Africa, between Sudan and maybe like the Ethiopia, Somalia, Kenya area, like all around that area. So Wakanda is also a technological marvel, but the rest of the world doesn't know that it's a technological marvel because the rest of the world thinks it's a poor third world country. Literally do not share their technology with anybody because they don't want the world to know that they have a huge depository of vibranium that actually came down on a asteroid from somewhere in the universe, and it landed into Wakanda, and it actually affected the vegetation around Wakanda to where only the leaders of Wakanda, as far as the Black Panthers, can actually eat the heart-shaped herbs that have the vibranium substance inside of it. And also vibranium is known as the hardest metal in the universe, and actually Captain American's shield is made out of vibranium. Now, like I said, this African country, they have this very, very advanced metal vibranium, and to the rest of the world, they look like poor farmers, but they're actually so advanced in technology that the main cities or the major cities in Wakanda are actually, they use a technology like a cloaking technology. So from the outside world, even if a plane flies by, it looks like very, very dense jungle and forest, but when you fly through it, the cities in Wakanda, the major, huge, technologically advanced cities appear. Now, as I stated, the Black Panther fights different comic book characters, such as the Fantastic Four, and he eventually comes out and tells them that, hey, I'm actually the king of Wakanda, and my name is T'Challa, and that's eventually how the Fantastic Four and other Marvel characters know who he is eventually. He's widely regarded as the Batman of the Marvel world, because Batman's in the DC world. If you don't know, DC Comics is different from Marvel Comics, or the Marvel company and DC companies are different. So a lot of people regard Black Panther as the Batman of the Marvel world because he's very, very rich. He has a lot of technology. He's very highly intelligent. He's very highly skilled at fighting. Now, there's a fighting ritual that every Black Panther has to go through to become King of Wakanda or the Black Panther. His dad, T'Challa, which is the current Black Panther as we see in the movie and the comic books, his dad, T'Chaka, was originally a Black Panther, and then before that, his father was a Black Panther. So you have to go through this fighting ritual to become the Black Panther, and actually Klaw, which is a villain or the antagonist or the villain for Black Panther, actually was pursued by Black Panther's dad, T'Chaka, for his whole time as a Black Panther, but he could never kill Klaw, and Klaw actually killed T'Chaka, which is Black Panther's dad. And then so eventually Black Panther comes back around, and Black Panther eventually uses the same weapon that Klaw was trying to develop and uses it to shoot off Klaw's arm. That's why Klaw has a fake prosthetic arm, and he actually has a beam inside of there now, or some kind of laser that he can shoot out with, and he does various different things. I think over time his claw changes throughout the comic book and different technologies. But he's also said to be immortal, and he basically wants to make these weapons that emit sound or some kind of sound wave, these sound weapons. We also have to understand that Black Panther is very, very intelligent. He's said to be the smartest person in the Marvel universe, and he actually has, he's super smart, he's super rich, like supposed to be the richest man in the world, which probably plays on to different African kings such as Mansa Musa in West Africa and Mali, and I talked about that. I have a video about that. But also, he has superhuman strength, superhuman speed, and superhuman reflexes. And his suit is actually made all out of vibranium, the hardest metal known in the universe, just like how Captain America's shield is made out of vibranium as well. Now let's look at the Panther god Bast. Now the Panther god Bast is what the Wakandans worship, and actually the Panther god Bast was based off of the Egyptian god. Now that was very important to the Wakandans, and actually the Wakandans, or the Black Panthers of the Wakandans, the kings or the Black Panthers, they actually have a mix between the spiritual powers of Bast, which is the Panther god or the cat god, and they also have the other half of that, which is the vibranium heart-shaped vegetables or plants that they eat. And these two combined together actually give the Black Panther his heightened senses and heightened awareness and heightened strength. So that is definitely something that we want to make sure we understand as well. And these help with the Black Panther's natural talents that he has developed throughout his life as well. He's definitely a king, and he came under a king, so he's been fighting his whole life. They have very, very, very good education in Wakanda, so he's very, very, very intelligent. Like I said, fighting style, and also his prowess, and the relationship between a panther and the Panther god and Black Panther is very important. In the movie, they didn't really show that spiritual side of it, and I just want to note that the comic book, there's some things that are different in the comic book than the movie, because when you adapt it to a movie, sometimes they change things. So there's some names and some characters that actually go about doing things different in the actual comic book than the actual movie. So I just want to make sure you guys understand that if you read the comic book, it might be a tidbit different, and they actually dive into the spirituality of the Panther god a little bit more, and Black Panther talking to the Panther god and things of this nature. Now, since we talked a little bit about the comic and its backstory, right, let's go to modern day, which is the movie, which is based off of the comics from the 60s all the way up to today into one movie, right? Or, well, it's probably going to be more than one movie, but the first movie. So the movie starts out in Oakland, California, and this plays on the Black Panther organization starting in Oakland, California, so definitely make sure you understand that. And we start off with T'Chaka as king, and his brother is actually selling vibranium to other people outside of Wakanda. And so now at this point, T'Chaka, which is T'Challa's dad, right? T'Chaka eventually has to kill his own brother. And actually, Forrest Whitaker's character, when he was younger, was with T'Chaka's brother in Oakland, California, and he was actually a spy or part of the War Dogs, and he was actually a spy, and he basically told T'Chaka that T'Chaka's brother was selling vibranium behind his back and, behind Wakanda's back. So he eventually kills him, and then that goes to the actual modern day T'Challa, and we start to learn about T'Challa as a Black Panther. Now, let me tell you this. Let's get right into what I love about the movie. Now, the first character that I love the most, that I actually think that might be even doper than Black Panther, especially in this movie, is Okoye. Now, Okoye is the general, and she's actually the head general in the intel of the all-woman, which is even dope right there, just all women, all Black women warrior group, and she's over the defense of the actual country and the personal protection of the king, or the Black Panther, or T'Challa. Now, the reason I love Okoye is because if you look at the scene of Okoye when they go to South Korea and they go into this underground gambling spot, she wears a wig, and I like the way that she says she wants to take this wig off, because she truly, in real life, and if you guys don't know, she actually plays one of the main characters on The Walking Dead. She's super, super dope. Her fighting skills came out in the movie. I mean, on The Walking Dead, she has locks and she has a sword, if you know, so she's very, very keen on using actual, swords and spears instead of actual guns. Like, all of her characters never ever really use guns. And sometimes she used guns in The Walking Dead, but she mainly uses her sword, for her primary weapon. And so the reason I love Okoye is because when they were in that, like I said, in South Korea, in that underground gambling spot, I love the part where she took off the wig and she threw it, and she was like, basically when she was walking there with Black Panther, she was like, I can't wait to take this wig off. I think that was a definite poke at the Western society and like what we deem as beautiful as people of African descent, and how we always have to change our hair. We, Black women can't just wear their natural hair or be bald, but they always feel like they have to wear a wig, and they shouldn't necessarily have to wear a wig because of society telling them that they have to wear a wig or their hair's not beautiful enough. So I love that about Okoye. She's very like strong Black woman, strong minded, and I love the fighting scene in South Korea. The fighting scene when she was in the underground gambling spot, I mean, she threw off the wig. Yo, the first thing she did was she pulled her spear out. I don't know exactly if it was from her hair or the back of her, somewhere in the back of her back, but she pulled her spear out. The spear is dope because I don't know if the spear is made from vibranium, but the spear extends out. It's very small, like this, like the size of your fist, and then it extends out. And on one side, she has the spear, which is just so dope. And then the other side, I don't know if you guys actually paid attention, the other side is actually the back of the spear, and it can actually electrocute you. So at first, I think there was one part where she hit a guy and she hit him with the back of her spear, and it electrocutes him, which is ridiculously dope. And so that fighting scene was amazing because it was one of those fighting scenes that was more of an Asian fighting scene than it was actual American fighting scene. And I'm talking about from the standpoint of videography. In America, there's a lot of cut. You hit somebody, they cut screens. You hit another person, they cut screens. They change the angle. A lot of the Asian way of directing is that they just have this very big backdrop, and sort of like Jackie Chan, to where they just let them fight and fight and fight and fight, and you're just really far back. The camera's really far back, and there's not a lot of cut scenes, so it makes it seem more realistic. It makes it seem like you're really there. It makes the fight seem more intense and more in depth. And I think that was one of the best highlights of the movie. That was one of the best fights in the movie. Like, Okoye is she's so dope. She is so dope. So also, I loved when Klaw was trying to attack them, and he was shooting at them, and he was shooting, actually, if you didn't know, Stan Lee, the creator of Black Panther, the old white guy, he was actually in the movie, and he was in the movie after Black Panther walked off. He won, and the CIA agent was there from America, and he walked off. Stan Lee walked in, and Stan Lee said something to the effect of something about the chips in the table, and that's actually Stan Lee. So that's another Easter egg in the movie. If you guys didn't know, that's actually Stan Lee, the guy that created Black Panther, or helped create Black Panther. So another part that I love is when she was actually going outside and they were pursuing Klaw, and she was so dope. She jumped on top of the Lexus, and you know that I love cars so much. So Lexus and Toyota were actually one of the sponsors of the movie, and they were in there, and they were actually driving a Lexus LS 500. And when her and Lupita, or Nakia, was over there and they were driving in the Lexus, I love when she jumped on top of the car and she just put her spear straight through the Lexus. And man, she was just so dope. Like, to me, she was one of my favorite characters in the movie, if not my favorite character in the movie, because she just showed the strength of a Black woman that had persistence, that had skill, that had patience. I mean, she was, man, I just love her so much. I don't know what to say about it. But when she was in the car, on top of the car with her spear, and she was just flying with her gown, her African attire was just flapping in the air, and, her dress, and she was just so dope, man. She was so dope. Like, she was one of my favorite characters, and I really loved her. And it also brings me to the point of Nakia, or Lupita's character, was so cute at the end, where Lix's Klaw, he actually shot their car and he blew it up, and I was scared because I thought she was dead at that point. And she actually was so cute. Like, Lupita, I never seen her this cute to me. Like, she just came down the street, like, on the seat, and she was just like looking around like, oh, okay, like, it was so cute, and almost like she was scared. Like, I loved that part so much. Now, if you guys don't know, Lupita's character, Nakia, she was actually T'Challa's, or the Black Panther's former lover, and she was also part of the War Dogs. So the War Dogs would basically go around the world, and they would gather, well, she's also a spy as well, so that they would spy on different countries. They would do missions, like they would do missions for the Black Panther in Wakanda and whatever he sort of kind of told them to go do. And the reason I love her character because she was very like stealthy. I like how they paid homage to what happened in Nigeria, and they had the 12 girls, or there was the girls that were in back of the actual van, and these Nigerian guys were trying to kidnap them or whatever might happen. And Lupita was actually in there, and when Lupita was in there, she just popped out and start fighting, and it just showed her character was actually sort of a rebel in a way to Wakanda because she wants to help other people and other African people as well. And I think that she looks at it as, you know, sort of kind of like how Killmonger looks at it, to where, you know, all these other black people in the world are in need, and Wakanda has all this power and has vibranium and these weapons. We should be helping them, right? So that's why I really love Nakia and Lupita's character, because she's sort of like tangled between, you know, love and the love for Wakanda, but wanting to help other people of African descent around the world. So I really like that part where they threw it in there with the Nigeria, as far as what happened in Nigeria not too long ago, as far as the girls getting kidnapped. You know, I loved how they threw that in the movie as well. Now let's talk about M'Baku. I like M'Baku because M'Baku is basically, he said in the comic book especially, he's supposed to be the second strongest person in Wakanda outside of T'Challa, and M'Baku belongs to the ethnic group or the tribe that believes in the gorilla god. And so they were actually casted outside, well, not outside of Wakanda, but they were basically exiled to the mountain in Wakanda because they were thought to have bad intentions, you know, for vibranium and what they wanted to do with the vibranium. And so the other four ethnic groups or tribes kicked them to the mountains, and now M'Baku is the ruler of the mountains, even though he's not king of Wakanda. So I like M'Baku, and one of my other favorite parts of the movie is because I love M'Baku when he was fighting Black Panther, because it showed a lot of things that I don't think a lot of people really realize. So one of the symbolisms that were in the movie that I thought was really dope, and I don't know if everybody paid attention to, was when M'Baku was fighting T'Challa at the ceremony to see who's going to be Black Panther or the new king. M'Baku was wearing a great white ape mask, and all of his people that belonged to his ethnic group or his tribe were wearing, you know, these like straw fitted, you know, like attires around their waist, and their whole body was white as if it was an ape. I don't know if you guys realize that. These are little Easter eggs. And I also, another Easter egg, or a definitely message, was when M'Baku and T'Challa were fighting, if you look in the background, it was the rising sun. So meaning that there's going to be a rising king, showing you that T'Challa eventually was going to become the king. He's a new king, such as like Lion King as well, right? In Lion King, when there was a new king, the sun would rise. So that shows new beginnings, right? But I love M'Baku because M'Baku, he basically is this big manly man grunt, and his fighting style doesn't necessarily have to do with speed, but it's more so about power. And the reason I love M'Baku is because, you know, there was a point where T'Challa beat M'Baku and he let him live. He didn't kill M'Baku, and M'Baku went back to his mountain. And there was a time where the CIA agent and T'Challa's mom and his sister Shuri came to the mountain, and he told the CIA agent, like, hey, look, if you don't be quiet, I'm gonna feed you to my kids. And then he started laughing like, ha ha, psych, we're vegetarians. And I like how they did that, because there's a lot of stereotype and connotation, I feel like, with Africans or people of African descent, but especially in Africa throughout, you know, the last hundreds of years of colonization, that they're savages, and, you know, there's cannibalism, and they just don't care about anything. So I liked how they showed that he was a vegetarian, because there are a lot of African countries that are more based on a vegetarian diet than they're actually meat, especially in East Africa. So I like how they put that in there. And I also like M'Baku because there was a time where he was panting, right? Or like he was making this noise, right? And it was like, who, right? And I think a lot of people think that that has to do with like a wolf or like a hyena, but that's actually the sound that gorillas make, which is very similar in some aspects. And when he did that to the CIA agent, it was almost like he, you know, him and his tribe was like, who. As soon as the CIA agent started talking, to almost tell him like, look, you're of European descent, you know, and throughout the whole movie, they called, you know, basically, you know, the CIA agent the colonizer, because when Europeans colonized Africa, so he was basically like, you're of European descent, you're a CIA agent, and you're a colonizer. We don't even want to hear anything from you. You don't even understand our traditions as African people and people of Wakanda, so don't say anything. So I really love that part of the movie when they basically was like, you're in my land now, European man. You gotta abide by Wakanda laws and the traditional, ancient traditions, you know? Now let's talk a little bit about Shuri. Now I like Shuri because she's so cute, and she's just like this little sister that wants Black Panther to be safe. Sort of kind of how Batman has Alfred, and Alfred creates all these gadgets for Batman, or helps him create these gadgets for Batman. Shuri helps create these gadgets for Black Panther, so she makes better suits for him with better vibranium. She makes different communication devices. She makes different weapons for him to use, and different technologies throughout Wakanda and for Black Panther. And I just love Shuri because she's so cute, and she always wants to, she's excited about life, and she's excited about just trying to protect Wakanda, and she's like this mad scientist that always is developing really, really dope technology for Wakanda. The other reason that I love Shuri so much is because she is just like, she's so energetic about fighting. Like, she wants to always fight. She wants to always go on missions. Black Panther basically is always promised her, like, yeah, I'll take you on a mission eventually, and she hasn't really gone. But towards the end of the movie, she actually fights, and she contributes a lot. But I mean, her being the technological mind behind a lot of these inventions in Wakanda is just crazy. And she also created something, I want to say, with the vibranium, to where she can mimic wherever Black Panther's at. They're like these little circular thin spheres, and you put them on top of a car or something, and then their technology is so advanced that you can actually control that. So then she can actually have a virtual cockpit back in Wakanda, and she can actually control that vehicle without Black Panther actually even having to drive. So the technology and the technological advancement in Wakanda is way more superior than every other country in the world. They have crazy technology, and that's why I like Shuri. I just like Shuri because she's so cute, and she's just like a very happy-go-lucky, and she basically mimics the perspective of another girl in a different country that is rich. She doesn't really have too many worries. She's used to being around richness and royalty, and she lives the good life. And that's a good thing to portray as far as Black people in a country, because she's living like she's in a rich country somewhere else, but she's in Wakanda, and she's rich, and she has this technology, and she basically creates suits and all kind of technology for the whole Wakanda. She actually found a way to transport vibranium, because vibranium is very unstable. So she actually, I want to say she did something, she created like a train system, and she emitted sound waves to the vibranium in the train so they can actually transport vibranium. Very intelligent girl. That's all I got to say about her. But I really love Shuri. She's so cute. She's so optimistic. She's so intelligent. I love her. Now, W'Kabi, I like W'Kabi because W'Kabi is the border defense for Wakanda. And when people come to Wakanda, they basically fly over Wakanda, they just see him, and he's wearing like these traditional, sort of kind of like farmer African clothes, which I think pays homage to a lot of East African ethnic groups, especially in Kenya, where they sort of kind of wear like this blanket over them and on one half of their body, and he has like this armor, a little piece of armor on the other side of the body. And he actually has these war rhinos, and I love these war rhinos. I don't know if these war rhinos are being fed by vibranium, because the war rhinos actually have markings on them, so they just might be traditional Wakanda markings. But I don't know if they have like vibranium or not, or they're feeding them fruit vibranium. But they're rhinos, so they're already strong nonetheless, because rhinos are like tanks, right? And rhinos have a very, very big aggression. But I like his character because it shows him as being in border control, or control over the border, but he longs for Wakanda to like capture Klaw. Like, he wants Klaw to be captured. Like, he doesn't want T'Challa to let Klaw slip out of his fingers like T'Chaka, which is T'Challa's dad. He doesn't want to let Klaw slip off his fingers. He wants Klaw to be brought back to Rwanda or dead. So he's basically fighting with himself, because he has patience, but he's losing patience. And I really love that, because it sort of plays on the actual border, like the concept of a border. Like, on one side of the border, it could be a good situation with another country. On another side of the border, it could be a bad situation. So I like how they made him the controller or the ruler of the border, somebody that watches over the border, him in that part of the army, because it sort of plays into his character about him being on both sides of the fence. Like, he wants peace, but he also wants to kill Klaw, and he wants Klaw to be brought back to Wakanda. And if he doesn't get brought back to Wakanda, he's willing to overthrow the government to basically have Klaw killed. So I just thought that was really interesting how they made him the controller of the border, because it sort of plays on the duality of one side good, one side bad. Now, Forest Whitaker and Angela Bassett, let's talk about their phenomenal roles in Black Panther. Now, Forest Whitaker played T'Chaka's spy, or T'Challa's dad, right? T'Chaka's spy, he was a spy to T'Chaka's brother. So he was there to spy on T'Chaka's brother to make sure that T'Chaka's brother wasn't selling vibranium. And like we said in the beginning, he actually was in Oakland, California. But T'Chaka's brother actually fell in love with the African American woman and had a kid, and we'll talk about Killmonger later. But basically, Forrest Whitaker in his older ages with T'Challa was sort of an advisor to T'Challa, and he actually was the one that helped with these ceremonies and traditional ceremonies and gave T'Challa advice. So he was sort of like Alfred in a way as well. And he gave T'Challa a lot of advice. I really thought that Forrest Whitaker did a very, very, very good job in this movie. And that brings me to Angela Bassett. And Angela Bassett is actually Black Panther's mother, or T'Challa's mother. And she plays as the head or the queen of Wakanda. She's very strong. She's very loving. She doesn't want anything to happen to her kids. And I thought that Angela Bassett played it very well. And all these actors had very, very good African accents, which I'll definitely talk about now. And one thing I want to state about that is that I think that they killed it on the African accents. I think it was more of a South African accent, so like Nelson Mandela around South African accent. I feel like it was that because they actually had clicks in the languages as well. But the accent reminded me of a more of a South African accent, like a Nelson Mandela type accent. Let's talk about the Everett K. Ross. Everett K. Ross is a CIA operative, and he's known for trying to regulate the Avengers. If you haven't watched the Avengers movie, you should probably watch it or read the comic books. But he's very well known for trying to regulate them. He's a very, very good pilot as well, and his character is also eventually going to befriend Black Panther or T'Challa. So throughout the comic books and throughout the movies, eventually him and Black Panther become very, very good friends. And as you see him, he has no vibranium, he has no superpowers. He's just an agent, and he's very skilled at flying. And if you've seen him at the beginning, he has like this bulletproof suitcase, and then also at the end he helps Wakanda and he flies the plane virtually because he's like one of the best flyers there is in the world. So that is a little bit on him, which is going to lead me to the next part. Now, we saved Killmonger and Black Panther or T'Challa for last. Now let's talk about Killmonger. Let's talk about the relationship between Killmonger and T'Challa. Killmonger is actually the son of T'Chaka, which is T'Challa's dad, brother. He's the son of T'Chaka's brother. And T'Chaka, like I told you in the beginning, T'Chaka killed his brother, and Killmonger is the product of him. He's the son of T'Chaka's brother, which T'Chaka killed. So now Killmonger has this very, very deep desire to know about Wakanda, to go back to Wakanda. And he was told by his dad about how rich and how powerful Wakanda was with their vibranium. So now he has this, I would say, like a African American and vendetta, or something that a lot of us African Americans might fight about, or we might talk about, to where he has this perspective of, why didn't Wakanda come back and save us? Why, if you had all this vibranium, this technology, there's billions of Black people around the world, people of African descent, that are starving, that are going through oppression, that are going through colonization, did go through colonization. Why didn't you come back and help us? So I like Killmonger because he comes from the side of an African American. His mom's African American, his dad's Wakandan, but I like the way that in the movie they sort of shortened the last 400 something odd years of, colonization and slavery and stuff that happened to African Americans from Africa to America, and they shortened it into one generation of Killmonger, which his mother was African American, his dad was Wakandan, but they sort of told this African American story about wanting to know your African history, wanting to understand why somebody didn't help you, or why, what happened in history, wanting to belong to an African country and African nation, and to, have a language and these things. So throughout the movie, he's very, very thirsty for power, and he's very thirsty to run Wakanda because he wants to basically help all of the African descent people around the world and supply them weapons made out of vibranium to overthrow every government so African people can be back on top, which is a dope dynamic. I like Killmonger as well because he's one of the best villains that ever was in Marvel. I even like him more than I like Klaw. Klaw's sort of basic, but I like him more than I like Klaw. I know a little bit more in depth about Klaw than most people do because I've read some of the comic books. And I like Killmonger because Killmonger, especially the part, and Michael B, he played the heck out of this part. But I like the part where he was in England, I want to say, and they were at this National Museum where they had our African art, this ancient African art from like the 1100s, from the 1200s, from like 800 years ago, almost 1,000 years ago. And I love the part where he was asking her questions. She was like, "Oh, she's an expert in African art. Oh, this piece is from the 14th dynasty, from the Bronze era or whatever, or the Benin Empire or Benin Empire." Benin Empire. And he was like, "Yo, you were basically colonizers, and this is my people's stuff, and this right here is from Wakanda. It was like some kind of hammer, I think Warhammer, and the top part of the hammer was made out of vibranium. And it just goes to, it just, instills the actual oppression of like African Americans and people of African descent, and it instills in his character the questioning, right? The questioning and the always wanting to know, and the sort of what we have pinned up inside of us about history and how Europeans colonized Africa. And it just embodies the African American experience so much, from him traveling to America, going back to Africa, and having these questions, and having this hatred that he's dealing with, and having this absolute resolve and its absolute destiny to, you know, basically fund the weapons of, or made out of vibranium, to all people of African descent around the world, so we can overthrow all these governments and become powerful like we were before colonization and slavery. Now, I love T'Challa as Black Panther. Black Panther goes through this process throughout the movie where he has to learn himself. He doesn't really doubt himself, but at times he does doubt himself, and he doubts, should he be a king, and what makes a king, and why a king is what he is. He, in one part, visited the spirit world when he became the Black Panther, and he went through the ceremony, the challenge ceremony. He actually saw his dad because his dad was killed, and he was basically saying, hey, I'm not ready to leave you. I don't want you to leave me as a father. I don't want you to basically die. I want you to still be living. And his dad was basically like, you're a king now. Like, you shouldn't bow to me. You're a man now. And so it just shows this process of T'Challa becoming king and going through all these trials and tribulations of, over people trying to overthrow the government, like Killmonger trying to overthrow the government, him losing, and him trying to be better than and make these decisions, and the hard decision between being from Wakanda and trying to save Wakanda and trying to conceal Wakanda, versus sharing technology with the world and sharing all the technology of Wakanda with the world and helping other Black people. But in that instance, if he helps all the Black people, it would endanger Wakanda, because then the world would know he has advanced technology. Black Panther is my favorite character of all time in Marvel, any comic book. Favorite character. Black Panther has, like I stated earlier, he has very heightened senses. He has superhuman strength. He has superhuman speed. He also has, what else does he have, guys? He's very rich, because he is the king of a rich country that owns vibranium, and they're sitting on boatloads of vibranium, as well as natural African resources like gold, iron, anything you could think of. So he's ridiculously rich, and he's ridiculously intelligent. He is said to be one of the most intelligent people in the Marvel comic books. So he's super intelligent. He knows how to make decisions on the whim of a dime very quickly. One of the parts that I loved the most was when he was in South Korea, and his sister Shuri was driving the Lexus two-door coupe sports car, luxury sports car coupe, or more so luxury. And when they were driving it, or when she was driving it virtually, she was like, yo, we're not going to make it. We're going to go through this intersection. There's a lot of cars. This Lexus is going to crash, and you're going to have to fly off this car. And he was like, no, hold on one second. And he just put like one of his claws, or either he put a claw or he held onto the door. He put a claw onto the car, and then he put his other claw onto the ground, and he actually lifted the car up on two wheels and turned the direction of the car, which was such a dope scene. So I love Black Panther because he has a fighting style that I think is mixed between, capoeira, which is like an Afro-Brazilian fighting style that comes from originally from West Africa. It was a wrestling fighting style, but then it turned into, and I'm gonna do a video on this. It turned into actually like a hand and kicking, more of a like stay in momentum fighting style. Use your momentum, use gravity to make kicks stronger. So there's some parts in South Korea when he's in the underground casino, you see him on the ground sort of doing capoeira moves, where he's like on the ground. He's moving sort of like in the sense of like a monkey or animal. He turns, and then he kicks, and then he like does a lot of ground movements. So I really like Black Panther's fighting style, because I think it's a mix between boxing and also capoeira, but he's known to be versed in almost every fighting style in the world. So this is a very highly intelligent man that is versed in fighting styles, that is rich. And that's why they call him the Marvel version of Batman. He's the Marvel version of Batman, because Batman's in the DC world, because they're very similar in those aspects. So I love Black Panther also because his suit is very dope. His suit is amazing. And Killmonger's suit was amazing too. The Golden Jaguar, it was dope. But I love Black Panther because it's very stealthy. And also, just his prowess as a king, right? Even his accent and the way that he goes about doing things throughout the whole movie, he develops as a king in the decisions, especially towards the end of the movie, about him sharing technology with the rest of the world. And I also want to reference the fight between Killmonger and T'Challa or Black Panther. Now, you notice that when this is very iconic in the comic book. When Black Panther or T'Challa gets thrown off during the ceremonial fighting to see who's going to be the new Black Panther or the new king, you see that Killmonger throws him off the side of the. There's these, there's a great vast between these rivers, or yeah, you would say huge rivers, and you can throw somebody down there. And if you notice, the sky is setting. The sun is setting, right? It's about to be nighttime, which symbolizes that there's going to be a dark time, which means that Black Panther is going to die, or something's bad's going to happen. He's not going to be king anymore. So I thought that was very, very dope. If you guys watch the movie again, look at the symbolism when the sun was setting and Black Panther was dethroned by Killmonger. They're so advanced that they speak various languages throughout the world, as well as other African languages. Also in Wakanda, the education is free. All citizens are free, and you get to actually pick what college you want to go to when you graduate to that level, and then you can eventually pick your occupation. If you want to be somebody that's very into science or technology, you can go into those fields, or you can choose to go into the working class field, something that's more manual labor, such as working in the vibranium fields or something of that nature, probably. But also, we have to understand that Wakanda has a navy, they have their air force, and they have the border control and their army, and these are very, very technologically advanced. A lot of these, like the planes that they use, are mimicking the Black Panther suit. So they have vibranium infused into them, and they can do the same things such as Black Panther suit, which you can. Black Panther suit has a shock absorption technique where if there's any force that touches his suit, he can actually exert it, and the more that there's force that touches his suit, eventually the exertion is bigger and bigger and bigger. So if he waits and uses it 10 minutes later when they keep shooting him, the exertion is going to be even bigger than if he would just use it if one bullet shot him, if that makes any sense. Wakanda also has universal health care, and they actually have the cure for cancer as well. Their technology is also so advanced that it's basically unhackable, but they can hack into other governments' computers and systems, and they also use a more eco-friendly way of powering their vehicles, because they have every natural resource in the world, but they use eco-friendly things such as solar panels or hydrogen instead of fossil fuels. So this is a very, very technologically advanced society. So guys, since I broke down some of the characters, now let's go ahead and talk about just what I love about the movie. So one of the things I love about the movies are the elders. There's different elders. Now, if you know African culture, then you know that some of these elders were wearing costumes from certain places, certain ethnic groups, and certain tribes in Africa. The one man that was wearing the green suit with the bowl in his mouth, that was actually took from the Morsi tribe, which is in Ethiopia, and they actually wear these different kinds of masses in their mouth and their ears, and they consider it beauty. Now, if you look at the older elder, the really, really old, small Black woman, she has Fulani earrings on, or Wadabi earrings on. So I think her character was a mix between Fulani and maybe Hausa, but more so Fulani. It was inspired from Fulani, the Fulani tribe or Wadabi tribe, where they have the earrings on their ears. And that is very dope, because that's one of my favorite ethnic groups in Africa. Now, there was another elder, and she was definitely from the Himba ethnic group. Of course, not in the movie, but they took their idea from the Himba ethnic group, because the Himba is in Namibia and South Africa, and the Himba wear red clay on their hair for beauty as well as protection. And as you can tell, she had red clay on her hair, and they had the little afro puffs that were sticking out, and that was really, really dope. I also love the in-depth tour of Wakanda. It was so beautiful, and it was so vibrant, and it really made you feel like you were in a city, like a technological city. You saw different kind of Black people from different ethnic groups walking around from Wakanda. Some were dressing a little bit more modern, some were dressing a little bit more traditional. You saw the transportation systems in Wakanda, the actual fullness of Wakanda, that made you feel that that city in Wakanda was very big and airy. And I love how they use traditional architect as far as housing, and the different kind of houses and different kind of buildings that are in Africa, traditional and modern, and they put those all in one city. So there was some from West Africa, there was some from East Africa, and the different architect from the actual buildings. I loved how they kept it African. It was just African. It was African architect from 1,000 years ago all the way up to today. Different houses, different mud huts. It was so dope. I really love how the city, the main city that T'Challa, Black Panther, lives in. I love, which I think is called Black Panther Island. I love how it's just so vibrant and it makes you feel so full. I also love in the movie the dynamics between African American and African, and like I stated with Killmonger and T'Challa, I love how they show that the African American side, not just African Americans, but like Haitians, Jamaicans, but more so in this movie, African Americans. I like how they show the dynamics between what African American feels and thinks and what their goals are compared to somebody that comes from the motherland that might be rich and might be already established, like Black Panther, and what his main goals are and what he thinks and what he should do, and his fighting between himself, between the old kings and their ideologies about keeping Wakanda a secret and actually coming out to the world so they can help mankind and just other people of African descent. So I like the dynamics. If you guys didn't notice, I like the dynamics between African American and African that they put in there, and the similarities, but the differences of how we might think about things and how we might approach things, even though all of Africa, for the most part, got colonized, but there's still different histories of how it went along and how people are affected by it. So I thought that was really dope as well. I also thought it was dope how they pulled different traditional clothing from all over Africa. I loved how they pulled different traditional clothing and they put it all into Wakanda. So there's different clothing that was from West Africa. There's different clothing that's from East, from North, from South. That was another thing that I thought was so dope. The clothing, the fashion in Black Panther is unbeatable. Yo, the fashion in Black Panther shows how diverse Africa is, even though a lot of people won't know exactly where these outfits or traditional clothing are from. And I know a lot of people that went to the movie theater were wearing their traditional clothes. So, I have a friend that she's a Romo, and she was wearing her traditional Romo clothing from Ethiopia. And I have another friend that's from West Africa, and she was wearing her traditional Ashanti clothing from her ethnic group and her tribe. So that part was really dope. The fashion was stupid dope. I love how they portrayed Wakanda, and I love the secretiveness of Wakanda, and they sort of flip the stereotype on the backside. Instead of all of the Eastern or Western countries that are developed or way more developed than all the African countries, now Wakanda is way more developed than every country in the world. So I love that dynamic to show, that people of African descent did have these kind of empires. Wakanda, even though it was a made-up fictional African country, these things existed. Wakanda is very reminiscent from the Empire of Ghana. It's very reminiscent of the Empire of Kush. It's very reminiscent of Egypt. It's very reminiscent of the Aksum Empire. It's just very reminiscent of a lot of African kingdoms and empires that we had. So I don't want people to think that these things didn't exist. They existed. That's the thing that I wish sort of kind of they would have pointed out in the movie a little bit more. But these kingdoms did definitely exist. And I also love how, like I said, they mixed the attire. When T'Challa was fighting in the ritual to be Black Panther, he was using a Zulu shield. He was using a Zulu shield and a spear to sort of reference the great Shaka Zulu and Zulu warriors and how they defeated the European colonizers that were invading with tactical plans and tactician in general. I also love that in Black Panther, Wakanda was shown in a different light as far as the different terrains. A lot of people still think that Africa is just jungle, unfortunately, and that's crazy. But in Wakanda, they have jungle, they have plains, right, where the defense, the border defense is, or the border control is at, and the border control tribe is at. And they have valleys, which is where one of the major cities at, where Black Panther lives at in his kingdom, and he's ruling with absolute king, black excellence, power, you know what I'm saying? And they also show the mountain where it snows. Yes, people, if you don't know, in Africa, it snows. There's different locations in Africa that actually snows. There's mountains in Africa, and I think a lot of people don't know that. So I really loved in the movie how they showed that Africa wasn't just jungle. Africa is more than just jungle. Like, I know on TV, you guys always see the Serengeti in Tanzania on the, Discovery Channel or Animal Planet, and all you see is like these flat lands with lions, and after that, all you see is like jungle. But Africa has snow. Africa has desert. Africa has the Sahel, which is like a place that's between the desert and vegetation. So there's a little bit of vegetation, but it's sort of deserty. There's mountains, there's snow. Like, there's different terrains in Africa, and I love that in Wakanda they show these different terrains so people would understand that, yes, in Africa it does snow. So that was really dope to me. Wakanda sounds so dope. Like, I love, especially, when she's speaking to him, and there's one part where the CIA agent is holding Klaw, and she's like, if he touches you again, I'm going to basically beat him up or, slit his throat or something like that. But I really love that because it's like the language is so dope to have an African language that is the main language of the actual movie is a really dope thing. Of course, they were speaking English too, but when they were speaking Wakandan, it was just so dope. Like the language was so elegant and beautiful, and it was forceful at times when it needed to be, but very elegant and wise at other times. So I really love that they showed the Wakandan language in Black Panther as well. And I also like how they portrayed the women. The women were very highly respected. The men bowed to the women. The women were very strong, but they were central at the same time. And that's why I think that Black women are. They're very, very strong, and they're warriors. They're warrior queens. And there was definitely warrior queens like Queen Nzinga in African history. So don't think that these things are false. There was even women pharaohs. There was definitely women warriors throughout history. And I just love that dynamic between the sensualness and the very, very toughness and the balance that in Black Panther and Wakanda, they have a balance of love, but also toughness, but they don't always have to be tough. And they can also love as well. And I really thought that was a dope dynamic to show the Black woman is not just always aggressive, but you probably don't want to get at her because the Black woman is very strong, as you can see on this movie. You know what I'm saying? And I'm pretty sure most people know in real life, Black women are probably no joke to be played with. I'm a Black man and I date Black women, and I know sometimes, they sort of hit hard, you know what I'm saying? And I also loved how they pay tribute to the ancestors. I think we all should pay tribute to our ancestors. And in Black Panther, they showed T'Challa going to the ancestral world after the ceremony when he was drinking the herbal juice, and he was visiting his dad, and there was the ancestors that had left before. I think as African culture, I know a lot of us have different religions now. We believe in certain things, but we have to understand that a lot of traditional African cultures, the things that were very similar amongst all of them is that respecting your ancestors and paying homage to your ancestors and letting your ancestors guide you. So I love the way that the ancestors were integrated into this movie. And in the comic book, I think it's the same, but it's a little bit different as far as like how he gets his powers through the ancestors and the Panther God and all this kind of stuff. But because there's a lot of iterations of the comic book. It's been out since the 60s. But I loved in the movie how they emphasize respect for the ancestors and respect for the elders. And I think that's another dope part of this movie that a lot of people need to realize is that we need to look back at our ancestors and talk to our ancestors and thank our ancestors for what they did instead of just like pushing over them and being like, hey, it's 2018. No, we need to really respect our ancestors and our elders as well. It's like also all the women in the movie. The women in the movie, especially the head of defense, my girl, and all the women that protect T'Challa, Black Panther. It's so dope that it was all women and all Black women that were protecting T'Challa and protect the king, and they all fought and they all showed this fierceness that I love so much. And I feel like it was a huge W for Black women all around the world in this movie because it shows them that you are fierce, you are a queen at the same time, and you are, very, very strong. And that's the way you should see yourself. Even if you don't walk around every day with a spear or some kind of weapon, you should see yourself as a warrior because you are. And when things come to, when it comes to push and shove or whatever, you'll probably be acting just like these, warriors were to protect your king, especially if you love him a lot and to protect yourself or your family. So I thought it was really dope, the emphasis on women warriors in Black Panther, especially Black women warriors. I mean, it was just amazing. It was just amazing. I don't know I can say anything else about it, but it was just amazing. Last thing I'm going to say is, before I wrap it up, because I know I've been talking, but I love Black Panther so much, but I love the war rhinos. I love the war rhinos because the rhino is a very, very powerful animal. If you guys don't know, rhinos are powerful. Elephants are very, very powerful as well, maybe even a little bit more powerful in some aspects, but elephants have a sort of more calmer nature to where some rhinos can be calm, but rhinos are sort of most of the time like, yo, this is my block, stay off of it. So I love the war rhinos, and I love how they use the war rhinos towards the end of the movie and the fight that they had between both sides, T'Challa and, Killmonger. And I also love how certain people in the kingdom, when there was basically an overthrowing of the power from Killmonger, I love how certain entities in the kingdom, in the country, had to pick sides. They had to pick to be loyal to T'Challa or to be loyal to Killmonger. And I love that dynamics of, be loyal to my country or be loyal to somebody, well, be loyal to my country and be loyal to the ancestors and how things have always traditionally been done or been done, or switch sides and go with your heart and do and follow who you love and follow the king that you love. So I thought that was a really dope dynamic, and I thought it was a dope dynamic, to where, love versus country tradition and pride were divided down the middle and people had to choose sides. I really loved that. Black Panther was a really, really, really dope movie. It gave me chills inside when I watched it. I actually watched it 2 times, which is the crazy part about it, and I still want to watch it again. And I would recommend anybody that has not seen it, please go see it. I think you'll really, really enjoy it. This is the dopest movie I've probably seen in years, to be honest with you. I mean, it's the first movie that I've seen that I actually wanted to actually go back and see it again. It's definitely a W as far as imagery, right? Imagery is a big deal, and when you see people on the screen that look like you, and the portrayal, even from America or in Africa or in Brazil or in Jamaica or Haiti, whoever was watching it from whatever country they were watching that, to see somebody on the big screen and the majority of the cast were of African descent is a really, really huge deal. It's a big deal. We have to take steps sometimes. It might not be the exact absolute answer for everything that people of African descent are going through, but imagery is a big deal. Media is a big deal, and propaganda is a big deal. So to see something like that, even if we know that in the background there's still other people pulling strings in the Marvel world or whatever, it's a stepping stone. It's definitely a stepping stone, and the movie's really, really dope. And I can just only imagine all the kids that got to see this, that when I was growing up, I never saw anything like this. When I was growing up in the 90s, I didn't see anything like this. Of course, there was black superheroes that, like the Wayans brothers and stuff, they made it, but it was made to be a comedy more than something so serious and more in-depth. And of course, they didn't have the same budget that, Marvel has and the Black Panther movie had. So I can only imagine when I was in the movie theater, I see all these little kids of African descent, and even other kids that were Asian and of European descent, and Indian kids, and it was a really, really amazing thing to see these kids. Some of these kids, this might have been the first movie that they ever saw or that they could actually understand. So for them to see that and grow up in a world to where it's going to be different from my world and different from the world before that is really, really dope. Guys, go see Black Panther. It's really dope. That's my sort of spiel on Black Panther. I really love it a lot. I hope you like it. Like, subscribe to all my social medias. Afric Network is my Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, Facebook, and Snapchat. And yo, guys, until next time, Wakanda forever. Peace, one love.
Video?
Yes, sir. I'm making a video.
What kind?
Actually, I was talking about Black Panther. You know the movie Black Panther?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was making a video.
You're a YouTuber?
Yeah, I'm a YouTuber.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm a
What's
YouTuber.
your channel?
I live right over there, across the street. But I was just doing it over here because I wish I had a card to give you. You guys have your cell phone on you?
No.
You don't? I wish I had a card to give you. My cards are in the house over there. My YouTube channel is called Afric Network. Yeah, Afric Network. So not Africa. Afric. So AFRIC.
I will watch you.
Please check it out, okay? You guys will love it.
You got a pen?
Yeah. I
Or
think.
paper?
I'll write it down.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Watch it. I'm gonna watch it when I get home.
Yeah, you guys will love it. Let's see. I'll just write it on this napkin.
You get lots of money for doing it?
Yeah, I'm gaining traction. It's definitely I'm getting a little bit of money, but not yet.
Right now?
Yeah, I'm making a video. I'm about to go back home. I live across the street over there. I just made it back here because I was just in the alley because it was quieter. But yeah, look, it's African Network. You'll see me. So you guys follow me, okay? Okay, you guys will love it.
You got anybody else in the video with you?
Yeah, I have a lot of people. I'm just doing one by myself right now, but I have a lot of people. So check it out, y'all. Peace, guys.
Do you do giveaways?
Yeah.
What kind?
I give away like African masks, statues, video games, all kind of stuff.
If you follow and subscribe and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Message me, you guys.
All right.
Okay. Take care. Be good, guys. Be safe, okay?
What's up? What's up?
Hey.
Shalom. What up? Hi. We back